Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. We are at the very end of January, year 2024, and I am coming to you from a bright, clear, beautiful winter day in Minnesota, where I live with my husband and our 2 young children. A big warm welcome to everybody joining me here in this creative space today. I hope you are doing well. If you are new here, the way I organize my videos is I start out with a vlog section in the beginning, which is usually just a few minutes long, that captures scenes from our day-to-day. And then we go into a welcome intro section, and then a finished project section, and then works in progress, and then eats and reads, and then a food for thought section. Food for thought is generally something that's been on my mind and something that I've maybe formed into some sort of tangible, cohesive manner to share with you. It is making related, but not necessarily specific to a project, and just something that I've been thinking about that I would like to share. And sometimes there is quote unquote homework involved, but really it's just a thought exercise sometimes, if you will, or something that you can implement into your real life. And if you care to share in response to the question that I ask, you are more than welcome to in the comments down below. I just ask that people continue to be kind and respectful to one another and to support and lift each other up. I do include show notes in all of my videos and closed captioning. So closed captioning you can access by clicking the CC button, and then if the speed that I speak at is too fast or too slow for your preferences, YouTube also allows you to adjust that as well. And then in the description box below this video, which you can access by clicking show more or this little arrow, you can find project pages that I use, which are all on the Ravelry website, but I do try to include all, if not more, information here on YouTube just to keep that information accessible and for another way of learning. I include links to the makers, designers, things that I talk about also in the description box below this video, so hopefully you will find the information that you seek down there. And if I have missed something, which is totally possible because I am a human being, you can feel free to ask that question in the comments below and I will do my best to answer it. And I believe that is it for just kind of an overview of how things are run here. I feel like the last 2 weeks have felt like a long time ago, but also really short. I try to come here in this space to record about every other week to talk about my projects and things like that, but I don't set a set schedule for myself, so it usually ends up being that way, but not always. And then sometimes there are maker musings that are scattered throughout, and those generally are me discussing a topic related to making that is under 30 minutes. And yeah, I recently put out one, so if that's something you want to check out, there is a playlist here in YouTube and it is titled Makers Musings. Before I jump into the finished projects, I will share with you what I am wearing here. This is my Building Blocks Drop Slipover Edition, and I knit this I think in the fall, I can't remember now, but it is using Purl Soho's Hedgerow base, and I really like how it has worn over time. It still looks brand new. The fabric blocked out very cohesively. It is a tweed, and it is a dry feeling yarn, and it knits up really nicely and really evenly. And I did a cropped length here, so the hem hits right at my belly button. And I opted for no sleeves, and since it is a drop shoulder construction, I end up with this slightly short sleeve situation here, but it is worn for me as a slipover, and I wear it over long sleeve shirts or button-ups, or in this case, a 3/4 length sleeve linen dress, and I find it really comfortable and just has that little bit of a light extra layer that I need to stay warm, but not necessarily with the book. We have 3 finished projects to talk about today. The first thing I want to share with you are a pair of socks that I showed you last time. I had just started them last time, and I finished 1 pair. So there were 2 pairs of socks for my 2 daughters, and I'm knitting them Valentine's Day socks, and I want to have them done by the end of January. Well, I don't know if the other one will get done by the end of January because I wanted the girls to be able to wear them for all of February and, you know, onwards from February, not just for the month of February. But the idea was to have them ready to wear by February 1st. I'm not sure the second pair will be ready by then. In fact, I don't have it in the pile here because it is the one that I leave in the car or my purse for whenever I'm waiting around for things because it's so easy to pick up and put down. Vanilla stuck in it and the round socks are just something that I don't have to count, and I don't have to get to like the end of a needle if I'm doing versus like magic loop or something like that, and I can just literally pick it up and put it down whenever. But yes, that pair isn't done yet. I won't show it today because I don't have it on me, but I will show you the one that is done. Dun, da, da, da. These are so fun. So these are for our 7-year-old. The yarn she picked out at a yarn shop that is local to Minnesota, and I just love them so much. And these are knit on US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. I have a gauge of 8.5 stitches per inch on these. It is a light fingering weight yarn. I cast on 52 stitches for her, and I used less than 40 grams of yarn. I used 38 grams of yarn, so about 40 grams of yarn. I knit them to be about crew length, which is what she wanted. So the socks are not identical. I did not try to make them identical. I just divided the yarn in half because I like to knit my yarn or my socks in tandem, and then I just went from there. So there's like a magenta, fuchsia, vibrant purple, and in some of the areas the yarns are more marled, and in other areas they look more solid. But they're just such a beautiful pair of socks, and she loves them. The yarn is Zauberball. Let's see, I have the tag saved here. And it is a 75-25 superwash wool nylon blend. It comes in 459 yards for 100 grams. The color is 2095. And the tag is kind of neat because it shows what the gradient is to knit up like. And I have quite a bit of yarn remaining, which I plan to use for another pair of socks. And I was either going to knit up a pair of socks for myself, or I was going to put them in the gift bin. If you have been here for a while, you will know that I gift knit year-round for birthdays, for holidays, and I stock up so that I am not as much panic making in October and November before Christmas. And so I will have things made ahead of time, and then I tag them so that I know who they are going to if I have that assigned already, and it goes in a box. And that way everything is kind of pretty much ready by the time end of November, early December comes around, because I want to enjoy that holiday season as well. And so I don't want to feel resentful. And yes, I do it to myself. I don't have to make all my loved ones something, but I would like to, and so I plan it out throughout the year. These I was also thinking could be really fun held double with a solid yarn, and then there's like even more marling going on, but then there's this fade and a gradient, and I just think it would be really cool, and there's plenty to do that with. I think there is 65 grams here, so I just need to go through my yarn and see what color I want to match it with. I think a purple would be great, a pink would be great, and yeah, and just go from there. And if I don't have enough of one color, I could just do the cuffs one and then the rest one or something like that. So I think this will be really fun. I'm hoping the yarn is showing up here. I know last time I had some issues with focusing. Hopefully I have that all figured out this time. I did do a slip stitch heel flap and gusset for this pair of socks. I'm going to take it off the blockers here. I just felt like doing one. So the rest of the sock was knit on US 9 US 1 9-inch circulars, and then I switched to double pointed needles to do the heel flap because that's just what I like to do. I just find it more comfortable, and then the front inset stitches are held on the 9-inch circulars. And then when I get to the toe, I switch to magic loop. Yes, this is not the most needle efficient way to knit a pair of socks, but it's what I like, and the tools I have, so I'm just going to use them. So I start on 9-inch circulars, heel flap I do on double pointed needles. After I'm done with the heel turn, I switch back to the 9-inch circulars because I just knit that last row across on the heel turn and then do my pick up for the gusset with the 9-inch circulars, and then I just keep going. And then when I get to the decreases for the toe, I switch to 32-inch magic loop. So I really love how these turned out. She has tried them on, so it's not a complete surprise. Plus she picked out the yarn, and they fit really, really nicely. Her only complaint was that they fit so perfectly that she's concerned already that she's going to outgrow them in a few months. And I did let her know that they're a little stretchy, so hopefully it'll give her a little bit of wiggle room. But yeah, that was her only thing, that she was sad that she would be eventually growing out of them. And I did let her know that there is more yarn, so I could save that yarn to knit her another pair once she grows out of these. But yeah, I'm so pleased with how they turned out, and I'm so excited for her to wear them. The next finished project I'm going to share with you today is one for my older daughter. It's a free pattern. I will have it on the screen here because I cannot find my notes on it. It's in here somewhere, but I took out the tab and maybe it fell off and I can't find it. I don't know where it is. This is strange. I'm pretty sure I wrote it down somewhere, but I don't see it. Okay, I'm not going to look anymore. I think it's on 4mm hook or a 3.5mm hook, one of those. And the yarns are all fingering weight held double, DK weight, or worsted weight. Here we go. I was nearly done last time, and it is completely finished now. It has been blocked, and it is so beautiful, and all the yarns are remaining from previous projects, and I just love it. What it reminds me of are the covers of fantasy fiction books. I feel like there's a magical quality to these colors, and I love reading fantasy, and so do my daughters, and so it's just perfect because I made this with the intention of them using it as a reading shawl so they can wear it while they're reading, and it's not as cumbersome as a blanket that you have to constantly be adjusting, but it's just nice and cozy and colorful, and I'm just so excited about it. It's probably a little bit big for them to wear as a scarf cowl regularly since it fits me really well like this, but I think, if they want to, they can as well. I think I ended up using a little over 300 grams of yarn, and so if you have some little bits of yarn remaining from lots of different projects, I think it's a great one to use those bits of yarn with. If you are concerned about color organizing, color management, you could always pick a color family and go with that. So mix all your blues and greens together, or maybe all your neutrals together, or all your pinks and reds together, or maybe you want to go 1 over on each side, so red, orange, yellows all together. Yeah, there's lots of options to do stuff like that, and if you want to just do whatever, then you can also just do whatever. So lots of options. I'm so excited to gift this to her. She has not seen it yet, so it's a complete surprise. And I will be gifting it to her next week. And so I have a little bit of ends to just tuck in. I connected all the yarns using Magic Knot, which you can find lots of different tutorials on YouTube, so you can search for that. So I just need to put these little ends back in. I did not cut the ends from the Magic Knot. You're supposed to cut them real close, but I I don't know, it makes me nervous to do that, so I just weave in the end. And then what I can do though is use a felting needle and just felt that spot a little bit just to make sure it's like really stuck in there. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to tidy up those little ends. There aren't a lot of them, so it will take me like probably 5 minutes to do. And yeah, so here it is again. The great thing also about this project is you can just go until you decide to stop or run out of yarn or whatever. So it doesn't take a lot of planning ahead of time, I don't think. And since with this project there's only one live stitch at a time, it's also really easy to start and stop. And when I'm not working on it, I just put a progress keeper that has a lever back through that one live stitch so it doesn't unravel on me, and then I don't have to worry about the hook getting lost or hooking on other things in the bag. So yeah, it works out pretty well. So that one is all finished. The third finished project I want to share with you is also one that I shared as a work in progress last time. This is using the 2024 January Farmer's Daughter Fiber Sock Squad sock set, except I didn't use the whole set. I just used the main color. And this is a subscription where you don't know what the color of the yarn is that you're going to receive each month, but there is an inspiration drawing that you can look at because there is a monthly calendar. I don't have that on me here as well. I'm not gonna grab it. I did show it in the previous video, so if you're curious as to what that looks like, go there. And this January yarn, the base is called Bighorn. It is 75-25 superwash merino nylon, and the merino is a 19.5 micron. It is super, super soft. It is light fingering weight, and it's at 463 yards for 100 grams. Here's my project. And I decided to knit my second mini mock neck tank. It is a pattern by Jessie Made Designs. And I'm gonna hold up the yarn closer here so hopefully you can see the color. It is a pale mint pistachio green with grayish spots. It's not really quite variegated, and it isn't really speckly, and it didn't pool, so I'm not sure what you would call this gray light variegation. I don't really know. I did make a couple of modifications. The pattern does allow you to, or not allow you, the pattern has written instructions for either like a mini mock neck, like a turtleneck kind of situation, or just like a very, very, very close crew neck, or a more looser crew neck version. What I changed about it is I picked up more stitches for the neckband so that I would have a wider crew neck. I just didn't want it super tight on my neck, and then I only knit a little bit of ribbing so that I had more room there. And then I extended the body length. The original pattern has it very cropped. I believe it hits at like natural waist. I knew I was going to wear this as an underlayer piece, so not something I would wear out on its own, but something I wear under button-ups, under flannels, under sweatshirts, under sweaters, under cardigans, and I wanted it to be something long enough that I could tuck into my pants or my skirt or whatever I'm wearing with it. And because it's also knit with a lot of negative ease, and I was going to be making it a lot longer, I included some gentle A-line shaping along the sides. And the other difference I made was that I continued this underarm ribbing all the way down the side. I'm gonna see if I can hold it up here, see if it's more visible. And that also gave me a little more stretch since I was going to be making it longer to go past my hips. And so then I just did the increases on the sides of this panel. Hopefully it's showing up here. They aren't super visible, which I did on purpose. So on each side of the panel, I went one more stitch over before I did my increases. So then there's evenly spaced increases throughout on the side of the panel once I got past my natural waist. And then I calculated how much yarn I would need to be able to finish, and I had less than 2 grams remaining. So I'm very happy with that. I have the rest of the yarn remaining here. It's a teeny tiny ball of yarn. I'm so pleased. And I actually do have the yarn label here. The colorway is Love Good. So there we go. And I will probably end up using this little bit of yarn in another half granny square shawl. I will use it right up in the beginning, and that way there's not a bunch of yarn in that section versus, you know, farther out, you use up a lot more to finish a row. So that will go into that. And yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say about this. I'm super pleased with it. The needle size I used were a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter for the main fabric. The rib, I used US 3, which is 3.25 millimeter. And then for the body bind off, I used a US 8, which is a 5 millimeter, just to make sure it wasn't going to be too tight. And I just bound off in pattern. I think that's all I have to say about this. Yeah, I really like it. And has anybody else noticed this yarn smells really good? I can't figure out what it is. It smells like sandalwood and something to me. I don't know. It just still smells really, really good. And it's so soft. Oh, I just love it. I love it so much. Are on to the works in progress section, and the first one I'm going to share with you is one that I had shared at the start of last time, and it is a crochet project. This is another half granny square shawl. This is probably my 4th or 5th rendition of this pattern. I just find it really fun. It's essentially the same idea as having like a granny stripe blanket, or anyway, in that same vein of things, but I just find this to be much more manageable for some reason, and I really enjoy it. Oh, you know, last time I was talking about having that live stitch on a stitch marker. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So there is one live stitch, and I just have it threaded through this lever back progress keeper, and that keeps it from unraveling. This is a polymer clay flower one that I had made maybe last year or a couple years ago, I can't remember. And if you've been here for some time, you will know that it is my dear polymer clay that I've had since the early 1990s. Polymer clay does not dry out. It's a polymer, and it probably does get more brittle over time and maybe doesn't cure as well, but honestly, I'm using it for my own personal reasons, and if it breaks, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just make another one. So I'm at the end of a color. I need to join another one, and I will show you where I'm at. I've made quite a bit of progress since last time. Are you ready? Here we are. I believe last time I had maybe gotten in the purples section. I'm not sure if I'd even gotten into the purples yet. And so I really like how this one is coming together as well. This one I am using a 4 millimeter or a G hook. And I love how the colors are playing together. I think it's really fun. I am probably more than halfway through. I would say this is probably 75% of the way through. I believe it's a Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock, but I don't remember what the colorway is. I have knit a pair of socks with it. This green here above it is Malabrigo worsted, Malabrigo Rio lettuce is the colorway. This yellow is remaining yarn from a pair of socks that I knit, also from Sock Squad. I believe it's from last year. And yeah, it's just really fun to see all these yarns that I've used. There's this tan-ish color here that is a Knit Picks yarn that I dyed with, I think this one I dyed with coffee. This variegated purple here is also a Farmer's Daughter Fiber Sock Squad yarn. And yeah, so it's really fun to see all of the yarns come together. And this one is giving me like whimsical woodland vibes. And I think it's super fun. So 75% of the way through. I am planning to have this one done by the end of February. Probably could get done earlier than that since it's already 75% of the way through. But yeah, that's the plan, and I will probably start another one once this is done. And I'm thinking of like a color scheme for that one, but we'll see what I pull together. I don't want to leave yarn out that could be well used just for that, like just because I have this color scheme going and then I have to think about it much more, versus just pulling all these colors together that I enjoy looking at and kind of going from there. And the only management I really do then is putting the smaller amounts in the beginning and the bigger amounts later. We'll see what I decide to do, because it kind of just is on a whim and whatever my mood is, and we'll see what yarn is remaining once I finish these. But I do have a couple of ideas in mind, and what I'll do is when I feel inspired, I will pull out these yarns and put them all in a project bag and designate them for that project. And if it comes to be that I end up working on it, great. And if I don't, I'll just pull from it and divvy it up into other things. But when I do feel inspired, I want to run with that energy and pull all the things together while I remember. That way it's ready to go when I'm ready for it. And so yeah, I do have a couple of bags kind of set out for things like that. And sometimes they're with the intention of making something like this, a half granny square shawl, and sometimes they are with other intentions for other types of projects, and that does play a role because it will depend on what kind of yarn I put in there. And so like for socks, if I want to make a pair of striped socks, I might want to only put in socks that I feel like are good for sock knitting or are all the same weight, versus something like this. Most of them I think are superwash merino, although there's leftover sock yarn in here, so there's stuff with nylon blending. The majority of it is superwash merino. I don't think any of this has non-superwash yarns in it, and I want it to be something that can be well used, well loved. If ice cream gets on it, oh well. If toast gets on it, oh well, I can wash it. And especially for things for the kids, I don't want them to have to treat it with so much, not preciousness, is that even a word? I want them to find it precious because mom made it for them and it's beautiful, but I also want them to use it. I don't want them to end up having it sitting on a shelf and just looking at it because it's too nice to use. I want them to be able to use it and love it and wear it, and then I can also just wash it if it needs to be washed. The next project I'm going to share with you is an update on a test knit. So last time I let you know about 2 test knits that I signed up for, and I'm really excited to show you the progress on them. So this first one is the Salty Air Sweater by Samantha Guerin. The yarn I am using is Pearl Soho's Knitting Yarn Base, and this yarn I picked up last spring when they were doing a big spring cleaning sale on discontinued yarns, discontinued colors. I don't believe this colorway is on their website right now. It is Cat Paw Pink, and it is a peachy pink that's heathered. This is a DK weight yarn or light worsted at 219 yards for 100 grams. And it is a non-superwash 100% merino wool. And this is what the yarn comes in, and you don't have to wind it. You can just knit straight from the yarn, ball yarn skein. And I like to wind mine up though, because otherwise it's like bouncing all over the place and I don't like to center pull. So I have mine wound on 2 cakes right now because I am knitting my sleeves in tandem. And I have a video here on my YouTube channel about how I prefer to knit my sleeves. I use the blue Qiaogu Shorty set, and the set comes with a shorter needle and a longer needle. I think it's 2 inches and 3 inches, and so I will attach it to whichever cord works best for that sleeve circumference and have one long, one short. So then the right one will be long and the left one will be short. And so that way I can knit both of my sleeves at the same time but on their own separate needles, which means then I have 2 yarn cakes going. And it doesn't really get that tangled because one just sits in the bag while the other one is maybe in another bag or in a bowl or something like that. So exciting. I've made a ton of progress. Oh, the other thing is it is an 18 stitches for 4 inches gauge of stockinette in the round, and I feel like that's a really, really good sweet spot for like worsted weight sweaters. And this pattern I think is for DK worsted. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. Are you ready? This lace yoke was so fun to knit. Samantha Guerin is the designer. I can't remember if I mentioned that. And the pattern comes with the written and the chart for this lace section. So if you are someone that follows one versus the other, they are both provided. I did use the chart and I found it really easy to follow. And I am not generally a lace knitter. Like, I don't gravitate towards lace, and I found this lace to be easy to follow. I didn't end up having to rip back at all, and I did put markers between the lace repeats, so if there was somewhere that was a mistake, I could more easily find it without having to undo the whole thing. I have a folded neckband here, which is really nice and squishy, and since it is a non-superwash yarn, I don't anticipate this stretching out a lot, but if it did, I could always thread an elastic through this fold over collar to keep it cinched up more snug. And so yeah, I have the sleeves going right now. So basically in the body, I went until I ran out of that cake of yarn, and then I just put it on, left it on the cable with stoppers. I'm using interchangeables, and then I went to the sleeves. This way I can just get my sleeves done and then go back to the body and then try it on as I go and see how it feels. But I love how this is working up. I am not alternating yarns at all. I feel like it's knitting up very even. There is heathering to it, so there's a depth in the fabric. I'm gonna try to hold it up close so you can see the color better. I feel like this yarn is really round and gives great stitch definition. It is also super soft without being like overly drapey. Like, there's still structure to it. It's not like limp feeling. And so I feel like it's a really good one for lace, and I think I think this should wear really well. I have another sweater that I knit using this yarn, and I haven't had to depill anything, and not even in the underarms. There's like slight fuzziness to it, but not any pilling. And so I feel like this yarn will hold up really well for this sweater as well. I don't think I have anything else to share on this. The deadline is early March, so I have to have it done by the end of February, and that way I have time to take photos. I think it is the perfect spring sweater. In the spring, we are usually still pretty chilly here. Usually our last chance of frost, or our last frost risk, is usually middle of May, and I keep emphasizing usually because we have had a very unusual winter. It is so strange. Last week we had all this mist and haze, and the little bit of snow that we've had so far has mostly melted. The kids have had mud on the playgrounds. It is just very, very strange. Usually at this time of year, we haven't seen the ground since like November because the snow never gets a chance to melt, and January and February are usually our coldest months. Like, it's rarely above 0 at that point. So in March, I'm not sure what it'll be like, but I think it'll still be sweater weather and it'll be fine. The other test knit I am going to give you an update on is the Woodhaven Pullover by Tiff Nealon. This one is also an 18 stitches per 4 inches gauge, which also makes it really enjoyable to knit. This one I am using Purl Soho's Linen Quill Held Double. Here is the tag. It is 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen, and this yarn held double is so nice. It's really hard to explain. It's very drapey, and the yarn itself is 439 yards for 100 grams. So knit up held double, I feel like is like a DK worsted, and it almost has like a spongy feel to it. I don't know. This is definitely more drapey than the other one I showed you, and it's not as round. And there's also heathering, and then because there's linen in it as well, the linen doesn't take up dye the same way as the animal fibers do, and so there's even more heathering. Here is what the yarn looks like. The colors I'm using are Baked Earth, which is this like pinky, peachy, neutral color. And then I'm using it paired with Butterscotch Yellow, which is a yellow orange. So these are the two colors I am holding together for my main fabric. It gives a very subtle marl, and it's warm, and I feel like it looks really friendly. Like it just looks very like approachable maybe. And then my contrast color is Rose Granite, which is like a slightly pinky lavender taupe, maybe? Like a rosy taupe color, if taupe could be rosy. So this one I'm holding double with itself. So there's no like other color marled in there. And I'm excited to share with you where I'm at. I'm in the body section. This one's also top down, but it's a drop shoulder construction instead of a round yoke. Oh, this is so cool. I've not made anything like this before. It has a fun eyelet paneling in the front and the back. And I have yet to pick up for the sleeves. So here are the armholes on the side. And I'm currently working on the body section. So hopefully if I hold this up a little bit closer, the marling, the very subtle marling will be evident. So there's just more fabric depth. The heathering gives it depth, but this very subtle marling also gives it some depth. And it's like mixing colors, right? It's like mixing up colors to turn it a little pinker or a little more orange or a little more one way or another. So I think it's so much fun. And I am gonna go for the full length. And yeah, so I have a little bit more to go. This one is due the same time as the other one. So I have both to finish by the end of February, and I think I can do it. We are going with iced tea now. This is a decaf hot cinnamon spice iced tea. And the reason we're going with iced tea now is the other day I burnt part of my inside of my mouth eating a samosa that was too hot. That filling can stay much hotter than you think it can or think it is. And so yeah, I burnt part of my gums on the inside and it really hurts. So I cast on 2 new things and I'm pretty excited about them, and I'm going to show you them right now. Okay, so this one I am using the Quartz Base by Pearl Soho, and they had a sale. I mean, they always have a sale going on, but there was a recent sale and there were some colors I really wanted to try, so I got them to try. Here's the yarn label for the Quartz Base. This is a non-superwash yarn that comes in 420 yards for 100 grams, so it is fingering weight, 65% merino wool, 35% suri alpaca. It is very soft, very drapey. Of course, if you're allergic to alpaca, you will not find it very soft, but I really like it. And I'm going to show you my box here that I have my colors in. I think they're in there snug enough that they should not roll out. Oh, this is so much fun. I had so much fun pulling these colors together. I think that they are cheerful and bright, and I'm just really excited about it. Let's see if I even remember the color names to tell you. We have ash gray, which is a very light gray. They're all slightly heathered. And then, I'm not going to balance them because that would not be a good idea. We have Wild Orchid, which is one of the newer colors. And this one's like a cool pink leaning purple. I mean, it's like a vibrant orchid. And then we have here, we have Pink Guava, which is also one of the newer colors. This is like a neon-y coral color. And then Lavender Moon. This one I've used before, so I already had this one. Denim Gray. I already had that one before as well. So Lavender Moon is like a really, really subtle lavender. And Denim Gray is like a bluish gray. And then 2 more colors here. This is like a Kelly green. It is called Green Veil. It is a very saturated green. You know, like there are certain colors that are like very orange or yellow. This is like a green. I really like this green. And we have this tealy blue, which I'm curious how it's going to show up on screen because teal is pretty much an impossible color to capture. This one is called Aquamarine Blue. And you may be wondering, what have I decided to cast on with all of these colors? Well, I have cast on another Musselburgh hat. This is a pattern by Isolde Teague, and here we are. I think it's so much fun. I am doing 8 round stripes and continuing the same stripe sequence. And I have named this project Cloudy with a Chance of Stripes. I feel like it's so whimsical and it kind of plays to the cloudy, overcast days of winter and wanting that burst of color sometimes. Sometimes I like, the calm neutrals, but sometimes I just need that little burst of color because everything is like gray and brown and white. And yeah, I was really drawn to these colors. And what I'm going to do is the other half, I'm going to do gray, unless I end up picking up more colors. We'll see what I end up doing. But I think what I'm going to do is do the second half gray. I don't know if I have enough of the gray denim to do the entire second half gray denim, but I know I definitely have enough of the ash gray, which is the light gray, to do the second half light gray, if that's what I want to do. Yeah, we're not sure. I'm not entirely sure. I know I don't want to do stripes for the entire hat. I want to do one side grayish colored, but I'm not entirely sure which one yet. So this is where we're at. And what I did differently here is I did not feel like fiddling with this crown section to start. So what I did instead was I did a crochet provisional cast on, which I follow a tutorial by Tin Can Knits, and I find it really clear. It's a picture tutorial, so I don't have to watch a video and stop a bunch. But so I used the Tin Can Knits tutorial, I did a crochet provisional cast on, and I started with the gray. So then I knit 2 rounds on the gray, and then I just started following the instructions for the crown decreases. The pattern is written so that you start increasing in the crown and do this sort of pinhole cast on, and that way you can measure your gauge as you go and decide how far you should increase to before you just knit even in the round. I've already knit a hat using this same yarn on the US 3 3.25 millimeter needles, so I know my gauge already. And therefore, I didn't feel like fussing with the crown as an increase type of method. So I just will do the crown decrease method on both ends. And I think that's just much easier. So that is what I am doing. And I am very happy with how it's going. Oh, and so after I finished the crown, then I went back to that provisional cast on, undid that provisional cast on with the waste yarn, and then just started knitting in the other direction. And it just works out just fine because those are live stitches, so none of my stitches will end up twisted or off half a stitch or anything like that. I just pick up from those live stitches and knit in the other direction. So yeah, super happy with how this is going. I like to knit mine extra long so that there's an extra wide brim, so I'll probably go to 24 or 26 inches in length from tip to tip. That way I have plenty of room for a really thick brim, and that is longer than what the pattern states, so I'm not giving away any information there. And my cast on number of stitches is for the adult small, I think. Oh, I remember. I ended up with somewhere between the adult small and the adult medium because of my gauge and how I know I want it to fit compared to my previous one. My previous one is slightly slouchier, slightly looser, and I wanted this one slightly more snug, and so I just adjusted based on that. And yeah, so this is where I'm at, and I'm really, really pleased with how the colors are turning out. The next project I've cast on is using a yarn that is a new to me base. It is a new base from Purl Soho, and I was just itching to try it out. This is called Plein Air. Oops, that one is ripped. Let me show you a different tag that's not ripped. 67% wool and 33% organically grown cotton. I've found myself more and more curious about these plant fiber blends, and they're just kind of fun to try out. This is 218 yards for 100 grams. It is not superwash. And here are the yarns. This one is Pencil Mark. It is kind of a graphite gray, hence the name Pencil Mark. This one is Teal Verdigris, and it is a heathered teal. Now I will say both of these colors came out looking darker than I anticipated from the website stock images. Now everybody's screens are calibrated differently, so they look a little bit darker. Now if they're like against light, like in the light, I'm sure it looks similar, but otherwise I feel like they came out a little bit darker. And then the other color I have is Rolled Oat, which is not, well, I don't really know how to explain this color. It is a neutral, and it's not quite beige, it's not quite taupe, maybe kind of mushroomy. Well, it's oat. It's oat. I don't really know how else to explain it. So I've been wanting to cast on a Tolsta tee by Rebecca of the Creabea, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. That gauge is written for 17 stitches for 4 inches on US 8 or 5 millimeter needles, and the pattern comes in DK and fingering weight, and it is a top-down raglan with a ton of different modifications, and the modifications are included in the pattern, which is so great. I am all about having a basic canvas that you can really create anything you want with it. And once you get the right fit, you can play around with whatever you want to really personalize the garment. Now I have started. Initially I was going to say I was going to cast on after I finished one of my test knits, but I just couldn't wait. So I'm going to show you where I'm at. I am in the raglan increase section, and I have gone down 1 needle size. I have found that plant fibers just behave differently, and I think the original sample in Rebecca's pattern also used a plant fiber yarn, and this is the first pattern I'm knitting by her, so I don't know how our gauges usually line up. But yeah, so I went down 1 needle size, and it could be this yarn as well. This yarn is surprising. I find it blocking a little bit bigger on whatever needles it is than I think it, not that I think it should, but than I expect. And so yeah, I went down a needle size, and when I block it, definitely blooms. It's a very round yarn with a high twist. I find it to be really, really soft. It almost blocks out velvety. I'm not sure if you can see the bit of halo on the yarn, but it does seem to block out a little velvety, which I was surprised about. I'm going to show you one of the swatches I have here. I have a few, but maybe if I hold it this way, maybe you'll be able to see a little bit of the halo. It's a really nice fabric. It's denser. I'm going to stretch it a little so maybe you can tell the fabric density a little bit better. So it definitely isn't gapey. There's a nice bounce to it. And yeah, it's super, super soft. It's very much next to skin soft. I don't have a garment in it yet, so I can't tell you how it wears over time. I can't tell you if it pills. I can't tell you if it feels hot or cold or anything like that. But I can tell you that it's enjoyable to knit with. My hands did not hurt knitting with it, even though it has a higher cotton content, which sometimes means there can be less give in the yarn, which sometimes then means your hands might hurt. But I haven't noticed that so far. And it is coming out with a pretty even fabric. This fabric has not been blocked yet, and it seems to be coming out pretty even. And I feel like there's good stitch definition. The raglan stitches here look really nice and tidy. And yeah, yeah, I feel like it's been an enjoyable process knitting with this yarn so far, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen. This one definitely doesn't have a deadline. It does just provide another fun construction. It's different from the other two. One had a lace round yoke, one had a drop shoulder construction, and this one is a raglan construction. They're all top down, which is my preferred method. And I was just really craving a raglan, and so I cast on a raglan. We are on to the eats and reads section. I have been baking and cooking so much that I'm not going to show you all the cookbooks or any of that because it would just take way too much time on my end, and I don't want to have to put all the books back on the shelf. So hopefully I will have some photos here on the screen so you can see some of the things that I've made. I've also included some of them in the vlog section in the beginning of this video. One of the things that I made that was a new to me recipe, it was a Smitten Kitchen chocolate cake recipe. I did change it up a little. I think the frosting was like a salted milk chocolate, but I didn't add the extra salt and I used semi-sweet chocolate chips instead of milk chocolate. It was still very, very good. Hers also had, I think, 3 layers, and I just cut my cake in half to do 2 layers, and it was still delicious. So good. I also made Christina Cho's 大蛋挞, which translates to big egg tart, and usually they come in like little tins, but I don't have little tins, and she had put out a recipe for it to be made in a big tart pan, and so that's what I did, and it's so good and it's so easy, and it just takes some time because of the different steps, and the baking is an hour and then the cooling setting is an hour, but otherwise the ingredients themselves are pretty simple, and so I really enjoy that. I also made Smitten Kitchen's gooey oat bars for the first time, and I loved those. So good. You have like a nice shortbread buttery crust, and then this like softer, almost like caramely layer, but not caramel, and then this like streusel-y type of oat topping with dried fruit. So I put dried cherries on mine, and then there's chocolate in there, and so good. So good. So I made those. I made a jalapeno cheddar no-knead bread, and that was delicious, and it came out super round. Mine don't always come out very round, but that one came out really round, so that was nice. And then I also made a caramel apple pie. That was a combination of different recipes, so I couldn't even tell you, but the recipe for the crust is the butter flaky crust, pie crust or something, by Smitten Kitchen. And then recently I made fried spring rolls. Those were so good. It was Again, didn't follow the recipe exactly. It was also a Christina Cho recipe, I believe, and I used what I had. So I think I had Napa cabbage in there, bok choy, some shredded carrots because I was running out. I think I had like 3 carrots left, so I just used them. And there's oyster sauce in there, and I had a little bit of rotisserie chicken left, so I threw that in there. And yeah, they were really good. We fried them. We rarely fry stuff in our household because it's just kind of annoying to do. And there were instructions to bake them, but I thought for this first time I would try frying them, and it worked out really well. So maybe next time I'll try baking them, but they were really, really good. We used up the entire pack of 50 wrappers, and so I gave some to my brother as well, and he said they were also really good, so that's fabulous. And with all the other baked goods, I also delivered some to my brother, so that's why I was able to bake so many things in the span of 2 weeks, and we don't have a lot of leftovers because between the 4 of us in our household, we are able to eat quite a bit of it and then also share it with my brother, so that worked out pretty well. As far as reading goes, I have started a couple of books and returned them. There was one, I can't remember exactly what it's called now. I'll put a picture on the screen, but I read the first 4 chapters and I just didn't love it. It was a new to me Taiwanese American author. The main character is like this spoiled, he's not a prince, he's a spoiled like prophecy. Well, he's this boy who was supposed to fulfill some sort of prophecy, and so he's like really spoiled and pampered, but also supposed to be taught all these martial arts skills, except he's really not very good, and I don't know, I just found him annoying, and I couldn't get past first 4 chapters. So that got returned. And then I was reading this, I think it's a trilogy. It was recommended to me because I read this other trilogy where the 3rd book isn't out yet. But they're both based on or inspired by Persian mythology, the same like set of stories or the same story. And this one is written differently in the sense that I feel like the other one I was reading might have been closer to young adult or like older young adult, whereas this one is closer to adult. And so it's kind of interesting to see how it's different. And I will definitely have pictures of it here on the screen. First book is called The City of Brass. The second book is called The Kingdom of Copper. And then the 3rd book is called The Empire of Gold. And I'm currently on the 2nd book. The first book was so good. It's magic, there's political intrigue, there's family relations, there's betrayal. And the books are pretty long. The 2nd book I have here in my lap, it's like about 600 pages. And I think the first book was roughly the same. The first book I've already returned it to the library, so I don't have it to share with you here. But yeah, I am maybe 25%, 20% of the way through on this one. And yeah, it's very enjoyable. I am enjoying the world that has been built and the characters that have been developed and how they are progressing throughout the book. A book I picked up recently is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young, and I'll put a picture of that on the screen here. I had tried a different book by this author previously, and I don't remember what it was, but I didn't finish it. There was something about it that, it wasn't triggering, but it wasn't, I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. So this one I decided to try. It was written in 2022 and it is adult fiction and there's magic involved and there's a tea shop involved and there is some romance, there is some mystery, and it is set in modern day on an island off the Pacific Northwest. I am maybe 10-15% of the way through this one. I just started it, so I am enjoying it so far. I like the way magic is talked about. There is some like herbology type of things in there. There are family dynamics, small town dynamics, and there's a lot of nature descriptions. And I like those kind of like lush nature descriptions. I am excited to keep reading this one. We are on to food for thought. And I have a question for you. I want you, if you're comfortable with this, if you want to, of course, you don't have to, share something that you are proud of yourself for. I feel like so often we are motivated by external praise that the internal praise can be equally, if not more important. Because 1, you're not relying on anybody else to tell you how you're doing. And 2, there can be so much self-confidence and self-gratification that comes out of thinking about what we are proud of for ourselves. Like something that you can do, something that you do well, maybe you don't do well, something that you just are proud of yourself for. And yeah, I invite you to think about that. And if you wish to share, that would be lovely. And if there are those who are reading the other comments below, I would love for you to support one another and share that love. For me, I was thinking about this question for myself, and I was thinking about it for my girls as well, because I feel like there's so much pressure to try to do well to get that external praise from others, whether it's from teachers, your parents, other peers around you. And what is it that we can reflect on and really internalize how we value ourselves? Something I'm proud of myself for is being resourceful. I feel like if I don't have something and I need it, I usually can figure out a way to either go around that or find a substitute or just make it work. And that is something that I have to do every single day. Maybe not always consciously, but it is definitely something that I use as a skill, because think about how many times you have to pivot and like change things up because something happens that wasn't in your agenda or whatever it is. But especially with children, I feel like we're constantly having to change things up because they can be very unpredictable. But I feel like I have gained the skill of being resourceful and being able to provide for myself, for my family, for my loved ones, based on things that I know I have, based on things that I can pull together. And that's something that I'm proud of, that I feel like is really intrinsic to who I am, and something that I feel like is a skill set that I can take for the rest of my life and continue to adapt and learn and grow from. But yeah, that's something that I'm proud of for myself. Okay. That is everything that I wanted to share with you today. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors. Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time.